If your mood swings without warning, your energy crashes midday, or your sleep just won't cooperate, your hormones might be behind it. Ever asked yourself, why do I feel off when everything looks normal on paper? Or could my hormones and mood really be connected? You're not imagining it, and you're not alone. In this episode, we're following the clues to decode your hormones, explore what throws them off balance, and talk through simple ways to reset and get back to feeling like you again. I'm Dr. Stacie Stevenson, the Wellness Detective. Let's investigate.
Dr. Stacie, our first question on hormones is from Kelly. She has the simple question, what is a hormone?
Okay, that's a really good question because hormone, everybody throws the term around. Okay, it's not simple, but it's sort of simple. Hormones are they're chemicals that are made in your glandular tissue. You know your thyroid gland probably, right? You know that hormones are made in the testicles. You know that hormones are made in the ovaries. Those make the male and female hormones. Hormones are also made in the adrenal glands, which are above your kidneys. So it's a system. And then there's also the pituitary gland, which is kind of the conductor. And then there's the hypothalamus in the brain. So it literally starts from the brain, works its way to the pituitary gland, then to the external glands. And in those glands, your brain is sending signals to create these very powerful, tiny little molecules in very small quantities that have these chain reactions in your metabolism. Insulin, for example, actually is a hormone. I don't think we think of it as a hormone. It's made in the pancreas, but it actually is a hormone. Cortisol is a hormone. We think of cortisol as inflammation, but cortisol is being produced from a signal from the hypothalamus to a signal to the pituitary, then to a signal to the distal organ. What other ones? Growth hormone, people don't think about. There are hormones that regulate your hunger and your sleep, melatonin, for example. It's a whole group of very tiny little molecules that pack a really big punch. I think when we say the word hormones in vernacular, people just think about progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. And then I think sort of the secondary hormone that's in people's consciousness in the general public is thyroid hormone. We're learning every day about other hormones. GLP-1s, for example, are modulating hormones that relate to satiety and hunger. But they're just these powerful little molecules that are made in tiny little quantities that signal cells to do a whole lot of work. That's what hormones are. They're neurophysiological biological modulators.
Next question is from a fan in New Jersey. She asks, Dr. Stacie, are hormones and moods really connected?
Well, your moods and hormones can be connected, of course, but also mood could be connected to hunger, to satiety, to psychological factors, to environmental factors. I kind of think it's unfair that mood equals hormone. I actually think that's a construct from the 50s or the 40s or this. I don't know why we only connect mood. We then have brain neurotransmitters and neurochemicals that affect mood. It really, really is complicated. And I know my job here is to uncomplicate it for everybody. And that's why I talk so much about cleaning up the basics of what you do every single day. Because quite frankly, until you are working on your very basic lifestyle, and your lifestyle is pretty clean, to tell you the truth, when we start testing and trying to understand what's going on with you, and it's in the midst of you still following the standard American diet, not getting your fitness, not following your emotional management and emotional help and spiritual help and all those sorts of things, really your practitioner's on shaky foundation already, because now we're testing based on the fact that you're probably disrupting all of those things with your diet and your lifestyle. So now I'm doing a test to analyze that which you probably might be able to manage a little bit on your own, or I would get a better number on your testing if we first managed some of those basic lifestyle matters. if you're really, really, really in trouble, we should just test. Like, let's say if you came in and said, Doc, I cannot get up. I'm missing work. I can't wake up. I called in sick. I'm really not sick. Because I can't sleep. I mean, if your life is really, really disrupted, like you're not functioning and it's mood or it's sleep or something like that, absolutely we should do the blood test and we should test all your hormones. Because first of all, I also find that testing gives people a little bit of peace of mind, because in your head you're thinking, I'm dying. I'll tell you what you're thinking. You're thinking, do I have cancer? Do I have a disease that's going to kill me? Do I have a lifetime disease? Do I have something that's going to get worse? Do I have Alzheimer's? Do I have? And once a laboratory test, I think, does give somebody this a little bit more concrete idea that, can I just be funny? You're not dying. That's doctor humor, right? Because we're all dying. We're all dying in the normal biology of life. But so that gives people confidence. And I think when we do test and we test a little more extensively, we give you something concrete that you can reread, that you can study, that you can look at. But make no mistake, those labs aren't going to magically go back to a good normal if you don't clean up your entire lifestyle. I am completely not against using bioidentical hormones. I know how to do it the sort of natural way, as people talk about. I know how to do it the pharmaceutical way, and I know kind of everything in between. There's trends, there are flows, ideas come and ideas go. Some things require more patience. Most of the time, people want the quick fix. That's the problem. And also, once you begin to use exogenous or prescribed hormone therapy, even say just for thyroid, which is fairly straightforward and has been known for a really long time, you still now have to get regular checks. The blood levels don't stay the same. The dosing doesn't stay the same. You might be sent to a specialist just in that. That may not go so well because they're really going to tinker and tinker and tinker and tinker, and it might drive you insane. So unless you are dangerously low and dangerously symptomatic, I would always spend 3 to 6 months taking a really hard look at your lifestyle factors and then test and see if you saw any changes, or just notice if you felt a little better. So if you end up kind of in that normal range of the hormones, but you still feel like terrible, I was going to say a naughty word, you have no choice but to move into lifestyle management, nutrient management. And I sometimes think those are the best cases, because I think everybody wants their labs to show a smoking gun. And I also want to say that labs don't show a smoking gun until it's been a while. If your thyroid hormone, it will generally gradually go down. Progesterone and estrogen gradually move. Progesterone begins to come down, and it gets erratic. They all get erratic, and then your body adapts and things kind of swing back up, and maybe you feel a little bit better, and then it plummets again, and then you get in a big stressful environment and it hits flatline again. I wish I could give you the magic bullet of just go to a doctor, get all your tests, get all your substances, and just move on down the road. It's not that simple.
Christine asks the next one. I don't find standard tests helpful. If I really want to understand what's going on with my hormones, not just guess, what kind of tests should I be asking for?
So you're exactly correct about the standard tests not typically being helpful, candidly, for just about anything with your health. If you have whatever your symptoms are in general, or your struggles in your health, which are generally going to surround sleep, fatigue, weight gain, joint aches and pains. In fact, those are the top 4 reasons that people even go to any kind of health visit, no matter what your age is, short of that you are clear you have some infectious illness or something like that you're worried about. You're really asking me, why don't so-called standard tests show anything? And the reason is this: standard tests are designed to only pick up severe pathology, and standard tests don't even test hormones at all. A typical battery of tests, if you're 35 to 40 years old, is what's called a CBC, or complete blood count, and also a metabolic panel or metabolic count. And that sounds very fancy, but it's not. And it might be a whole page of paper that, you see 25 tests, but the value is to basically see if you're alive. I'm not kidding. And I'm being a little bit funny about that, but complete blood count only tells you your red cells, your white cells, and some basics about the cellular characteristics. Those are screenings to make sure that you're not possibly in a pathologic position or leaning into something very, very severe. Metabolic panels are standard as well, and they just give a tiny little insight into the knowledge of, are your organs functioning at a very basic level. So the word standard tests alone drives me crazy, because there's a belief in the traditional medical system that mostly you start blood testing at the most basic levels, and then you get that result back. And then, there's nothing there. Or maybe there was a little something there. Like, it would pick up iron deficiency, for example. Like a complete blood count, which is very inexpensive and is considered just a standard regular test, would pick up if you have iron deficiency. It doesn't measure the iron, but it measures the red blood cells. And if red blood cells are dangerously low, that immediately tells you you probably have an iron deficiency. There's also a concept on the complete blood count called total iron binding capacity. And you'll see that, the TIBC, you'll see that on your blood tests. And that means, are your red cells able to basically connect and bind to iron? If that number's off, that tells us if you're iron deficiency. So there are clues we can pick up in standard tests. And I want to tell you something else. The biggest clues you figure out are not in the laboratory. We don't actually treat laboratory tests or imaging tests. We treat human beings. And your description and your explanation of your experiences and what's going on with your body, how you're feeling, what you're noticing, is eminently more powerful than our lab tests. So while I am a huge proponent of blood and laboratory testing, I also know that if I haven't figured out 90% of the time what's going on with you just by your discussion of your history and your own observations and my questions, the chances of me figuring out go down and down and down and down, because basically within 20 or 30 minutes, like if we gave you a very good questionnaire and you took very good time with looking at it, and then I worked with you for 30 minutes, very focused in what's going on for you, the chances that I can narrow down on what you just asked, you're fatigued, your mood, you're this or that, I probably pretty well know the upper diagnosis already. What you don't know, what you don't know from histories is when something is really, really life-threatening or really, really serious, and you don't know how far someone has sort of gone downhill, say in a hormone level or something like that. So I need the laboratory tests to see the extent of what things are going on, but it's a very high chance that I understand through your age, your stress factors, your diet, your lifestyle, the symptoms you're experiencing, your interpersonal relationships. If I can even get under the covers of most of that, your labs will just confirm that which I probably already figured out.
We have a question from Montpelier, Vermont. Dr. Stacie, can you give me insight on thyroid tests? I hear a lot of conflicting information.
There's no reason, in my opinion, that you shouldn't have a very good comprehensive thyroid analysis every year. And that's not just your TSH. So if you go to your doctor and they've said, well, your TSH is within normal, I want everybody to remember, let's just start with thyroid because everybody wants to jump to progesterone and estrogen. The normal curve of human being average numbers for thyroid hormone is enormous. And you can be a little bit low and have no symptoms. You can be a little bit low and have severe symptoms. You can be a little bit high and have no symptoms. You can be a little bit high and have severe symptoms, and literally everything in between. So I'm a big believer in measuring certain things really starting at about age 35, almost annually. And one of them is a thyroid panel. Another one is vitamin D. Those just would be silly not to look at every single year. I know you're probably thinking, why don't I measure my estrogen and my progesterone? And you can measure all of those. And I do it for me. I've probably been measuring all of those on myself 3 or 4 times a year for a very long time, but you don't have to do that. That's more for other reasons.
Our last question on hormones comes from Sarah. She wants to know, I feel like the standard labs don't tell the full story about my hormones and my health, and I want something more in-depth and useful. What should I do, Dr. Stacie?
Just hormones in general. Remember, they're really hard to dose. They're very hard to analyze. We really treat the person's experience and the symptoms more than we treat the labs. So if I got a lab test back and you had tested progesterone and estrogen, like let's say you said to your provider, just give me everything. I don't care what the cost. I don't care how much blood. I want to really, really have this super comprehensive hormone analysis. Well, first of all, some of it is in blood, but some of it is not accurate in blood. Some of these tests need to be done through saliva, and some of these tests need to be done based on your cycle, if you're cycling. Every time you take a blood test for a hormone, you're only testing that exact moment in time. And most of these hormones have a circadian rhythm, meaning they change throughout the day, they change throughout the month, they change throughout the year. They're stored, and there are signals that release certain amounts of hormones when your body calls for it. So I want you to understand that it's not exactly that the testing is bad. It's just that the testing is just a clue, and the testing doesn't create a diagnosis. Your experience of what you're going through is more the so-called diagnosis. If your labs are so severely disrupted that you have a pathologic illness, say with a certain gland which makes a hormone, that's a whole different story. So let's don't even go there. You're sort of talking more about the basics. So I would ask for thyroid analysis every year. I would ask for estrogen and progesterone analysis every year. But I wouldn't rest on them being normal. If you still had symptomology, you can also go through a course of treatment. And going through a course of treatment always should be bioidentical. It should always be very gradual. And I'm going to say something that probably a lot of my colleagues disagree with. I think you should, with thyroid, I think you should just begin working with thyroid only. I don't think you should. This is what people do. Thyroid, testosterone, progesterone, they throw everything at you all at once. That is really dumb. That's a scramble. You may end up taking all of those or utilizing all of those at some point or different points in your life. But if you just throw everything into the machine and then we'll retest it, we're only knowing one number for one hormone at one moment of time. We don't know when you took your medications. We don't know when you drew the blood compared to when you took the medications. That has a lot to do with it. So I will tell you that partly why you're frustrated is, stupidly in my own profession, we don't tell you when to get your blood draw as it relates to when you last took your medication. Generally, we don't. A little bit. I'm being a bit severe, but it's kind of a wild card. So I guess my core with blood tests are, over my career, I have become less reliant on blood tests than I used to be. And they haven't really improved all that much in a decade. They're relatively the same. Prices change and prices go down, and that's a good thing. But they're relatively the same. And I can tell you as a provider, we can sit there and look at your laboratories and then hear what you're saying. And we can sit there and go, well, this doesn't match. Like, we know it doesn't match. We're going, well, your TSH is within a normal range. And you're going, yes, doctor, but I feel like hell. So trust us, we don't really feel like the testing works that much. So in the profession, the overall healthcare profession, even integrative doctors in general, there is less and less of a reliance on the old traditional moment in time blood tests. And there's more reliance now on gradually treating the most obvious first, seeing how that goes, then retesting, then maybe then adding perhaps another hormone, seeing how that goes. Believe me, you could go to 1,000 integrative doctors right now and you could walk out with 5 bioidentical prescriptions. You could easily get a big panel of tests, takes a few weeks, leave with a testosterone cream and a progesterone pill and maybe an estrogen injection or a patch. You could leave with you could then leave with like a levothyroxine for your thyroid. You could walk out the door with all of that stuff in your hand. Utilize the test along with your health professional and your own instincts and gradually work through a piece at a time. Well, that's a wrap on today's episode of The Wellness Detective. I hope it gave you a fresh perspective on hormone health. We covered a lot. How your hormones affect everything from your mood to your metabolism, the little signs your body's been dropping that something's off, and most importantly, what you can actually do about it. Here's the bottom line. You don't have to live with feeling off. You're not crazy, you're not broken, and you're definitely not alone. When your hormones are out of balance, your whole system feels it. But the good news is your body wants to heal. And with the right support, whether that's food, movement, stress management, or smart supplementation, you can feel like yourself again. If anything we talked about today hit home, I'd love to hear from you. Subscribe, leave a review, or share this with a friend who might need a little hormone harmony in their life. And don't forget, you can always send your questions my way at drstaciestevenson.com. I might just answer it on a future episode. And until next time, be your own wellness detective by listening to your body and being kind to yourself. I'm Dr. Stacie Stevenson, wishing you joy and vibrant health every day.